Welcome to Life and Soul at Christmas. It's great to have you with us. My name's Emma. This is Andy. If this is your first time with us at Life and Soul, it's great to have you with us. Just so you know, Life and Soul is an opportunity to explore, to think about some of the meanings that we give to life. Andy and I chat together, explore some ideas for about half an hour, and we really welcome your comments and your questions. So do pose your comments and questions in the chat as we go along, and we'll be throwing them up on the screen. We'll also be posing some specific questions to you as we go along, so look out for that. Andy, it's been a tough year this year.
Oh, goodness me, hasn't it indeed? There's been some highs and some lows. For some people, they just can't wait, I think, to get to the end of this year. For others, they just want something to distract them, and maybe Christmas is something which is going to be very important for some people. We've had a very mixed year in our household. We've had our first grandchild, for example, but haven't been able to see her yet. Just things like that. We're going to see her next weekend, just to fill in the gaps there, hopefully. But for many people, they're just dreading the whole Christmas thing. My dad unfortunately died at Christmas some years ago, so it's always tinged with sadness at Christmas, as well as the actual joy of getting together with family and just enjoying what is actually going on. So I think for many of us, we need to be aware that some people are really suffering at the moment for all kinds of reasons because of what's been going on with the pandemic. But thank God for the vaccines. We are very hopeful, aren't we, for the future?
Absolutely. Yeah. Amen to that. Yeah, it's been a really tough year. And I have to say, I put my decorations up a lot sooner than I usually do. So you will see my Christmas tree, one of my Christmas trees in the background.
Sorry, when you say one of your Christmas trees, how many have you got exactly?
I have two. There have been years when I've had three. I have two this year. Both plastic, so I have to use them now for the rest of my life for good eco reasons. So yeah, two Christmas trees. We have a nativity scene, which we're going to be thinking about a little bit tonight. More on that later. And I'm wearing a sort of a Christmas jumper. So yeah, I find it, I love Christmas. I love the lead up to it. It gets me really excited.
Yeah. Can I say I'm not wearing a Christmas jumper on purpose? So tell me why you like Christmas, Emma. Just tell me about it.
Tell you why I like Christmas.
Yeah.
Basically, sparkly lights, pretty things, presents, nice food, nice drinks, Christmas carols, amazing hats like that. I mean, it might sound really, really frivolous, but it's just fun, and I just enjoy the fun of it. Well, I used to be a secondary school teacher. Bar humbug, yeah, very good. I used to be a teacher, and so Christmas for me never started until the schools broke up, which is usually about 20th of December. But then when I left teaching, started working for the church, actually churches start gearing up for Christmas in September, if not earlier. And so the lead-in got longer and longer, and I just love it. Yeah.
Well, in our house, we don't do Christmas until after December the 7th, because it's my wife's birthday. So we don't get excited. Next week, I'll be very different, with a different, more colourful hat and a wonderful Christmas jumper. But this week, no, we're not. We're just not going to go there for the time being, because, you know, our decorations are in boxes, mostly in the loft. Mostly in the loft. We have got some down for other reasons, but I'll go into that maybe later.
Let's find out what other people think then. When do you put up your Christmas decorations? Why don't you tell us in the comments? I'm guessing there'll be a real range of responses. Andy, I've got my first present. I'm so excited.
Have you?
Yeah.
Where's that come from then?
Well, it came from you.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that.
I got this box, folks. I got this box delivered to me. Andy, do I get to open it?
You do indeed, Em. Enjoy.
Oh, it's actually quite well. Oh, that's all right. The sellotape's not standing up to me. Oh, wow. Oh, it's very sparkly. Okay. It's very well wrapped, folks. Shall I keep going, Andy?
Yeah, keep going. Keep going. That's bubble wrap to protect it.
All right. Bubble wrap. I found out you can recycle bubble wrap recently, which made me very happy. Oh, look at that. So a chocolate advent calendar, folks, but it's a fair trade one.
It's fair trade. Yeah.
It's vegan, 70% cocoa chocolate. Thank you, Andy.
The idea being is every day, as we're doing Life and Soul, you can have a little bit of chocolate, which is for you, no sharing with anybody, okay?
Noted. Thank you so much.
This is definitely
and thanks
for
for reminding us, because we called this Life and Soul at Christmas, but actually, technically, it's not Christmas yet, it's Advent. It's the time when we're waiting for Christmas. So this is my Advent jumper because it's got a clock on it, this kind of time of waiting and preparation. Love to hear when you put your decorations up, folks. Write in the chat, let us know whether you're someone who starts on the 1st of August or whether you believe in not starting to the Christmas Eve. Some people wait till Christmas Eve, which I think is probably traditional.
Yeah. Can I just say that there's a garden centre on the A127 near where we both live, which starts selling Christmas decorations and trees and things about July. And my wife is so against what is going on then. She refuses to walk through it. In fact, once I remember I had to guide her. She closed her eyes so she hadn't got to look at it, walking through Christmas in July. Now, that I can kind of understand. Yeah. That is very early, isn't it?
It is early. So we got a comment from Andrew. He says, decorations go up second week in December. Brackets, first card arrived today. My first Christmas card arrived about a week ago. Interesting. So Andrew says second week in December. So I'm guessing they're not up yet. Andrew, I might drive past your house later to check. So let's talk a bit more about this beautiful nativity set that I have. This belonged to my husband's family. That he had this growing up when he was a child. And now we have it. I really love it. I'm hoping that you can see it okay. I might just, sorry, Andy, I'm going to remove you from the screen for a moment, just so you can see it. So we've got Mary here, and we've got Joseph. Hold that up so you can see it. And here is the manger. But did you notice anything strange about the manger?
I couldn't see anything in it. It just looked like a little hole thing.
Nothing in it. That's right. So generally, traditionally, the baby Jesus doesn't go in the manger until Christmas Day. So we put up this nativity scene every year, but we don't put the baby in until Christmas Day. Now, I know I've hidden the baby somewhere safe, but I can't remember where. I'm hoping that I will remember by Christmas.
Oh, goodness me. I'm sure there's an analogy there which we can maybe develop as the weeks go on about trying to find Jesus, something like that.
Yeah.
Is that pushing a little bit?
We'll maybe come back to that one. Crazy Cello Lady says, traditionally, we put up our decorations after the 21st of December, Eleanor's birthdays, but I think it will be much earlier this year. Yeah. I wonder if Cello Lady is wanting a bit of cheering up. Yeah. So, Andy, there's not many people in this scene yet. We've got Mary, we've got Joseph, we haven't got the baby yet. Tell us about the shepherds.
Yeah, well, I'm actually going to read a bit from a book which talks about the shepherds. Let me just read this. There were some sheep herders, shepherds, camping in the neighbourhood. They had set night watches over their sheep. Suddenly, God's angel stood among them, and God's glory blazed around them. They were terrified. The angel said, "Don't be afraid. I'm here to announce a great and joyful event that is meant for everybody worldwide. A Saviour just been born in David's town, a Saviour who is Messiah and Master. This is what you're going to look for, a baby wrapped in a blanket and lying in a manger." So these were shepherds, ordinary kind of folks. And once the angels were joined by a huge angelic choir singing God's praises. And we'll talk angels a bit more next week. The choir that went into heaven, and the sheep herders said, "Let's go to Bethlehem as far as we can and see what God has revealed to us." And they went and they found Jesus, basically. Now, these were your average Joes, I think, rather than somebody special. Because if God was going to turn up, then surely he would tell the kings about it, he would tell wise men, he'd tell politicians. He wouldn't be telling you your bog standard shepherds, as it were, in those days. But I think that says a lot about how God is and what God thinks about life and people, and actually wants to identify with the ordinary people rather than those people who are very kind of high up and lord it over us and so on, which I think is very interesting, which means that even people like me and you, Emma, can actually get to know God, and that people watching here can get to know God as well because of that. As I say, we'll talk angels maybe a bit more next week.
Yeah. Yeah, coming on to them next week. So shall I add the shepherds, the sheep herders to the manger? Not the manger, to the nativity scene.
Please,
So
please do. Yeah, please do. There we go. Yeah.
And this guy seems to be playing some sort of bagpipe.
Yeah.
And we've got, this looks like a shepherd boy to me. This looks like quite a young shepherd. We'll put in there. And I've even got a little sheep. I suspect this sheep was not in the original set. So I think this little sheep was added over the years. But there we go. So shepherds, ordinary people going on about their ordinary lives.
Yeah. It's interesting that obviously where the shepherds were, these angels could kind of break in, and obviously we're having interaction with heaven, with God, with angels. So I imagine that's quite what people might call a thin place. Now, so it's a phrase which, what does the phrase thin place mean to you, Em?
Thin place. So a thin place for me is it's an interesting expression, isn't it? It's somewhere where the barrier between us and God, or us and the spirit world, is thinner. I think often in my daily life, I just kind of focus on the here and now, doing the washing up, getting my work done, eating and drinking, all of, just the normal human stuff. And it can be easy not to think about God. So a thin place is, I guess, a place where that kind of, all of that fog, all of that stuff that normally takes up our minds and our attention, it kind of fades out a bit, and God feels a bit thinner, a bit closer to us. The barrier is thinner. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I've got a couple of thin places, partly because I'm now doing Slimming World again, so that's actually quite good.
Oh, well done.
Yeah, thank you very much. But actually, I've experienced recently, I walk quite a lot on Chalkwell Beach. Those of you who live in the Southend area will know about Chalkwell Beach, because you can park for free at the top, and you can walk along there. I used to work there quite a lot. I hadn't walked for about a year, and I went for a walk recently, and as I stepped onto the beach, I suddenly, you may think I'm completely mad, but I suddenly felt God smiling at me, almost like to say, welcome back. And that was just amazing. It's a place I used to go and pray quite a lot and just talk to God and just spend time. And it's a place I can actually, when I go there, I can almost I won't say guarantee to meet with him, but I find it easier to talk on a beach, that particular beach, for example. So that's actually a thin place for me. What about you? Have you got a thin place like that?
I do. I mean, I have to say, I've had moments over the years where I've kind of, it's felt like a thin place, but it's been quite an ordinary place. Like sometimes I'm just walking down the street, but often when I'm on my own and I'm kind of in that sort of reflective mood. But there is a place that's been special to me over the years. It's called, some people know it as Holy Island, or as Lindisfarne. It's in Northumberland. It's I think you call it a tidal island. So you can walk across it or drive across to the island, but only at certain times of day. And I've been up there before on retreat, by which I just mean to have a few days away from it all, to pray and to think and to let God speak to me. And that's become a thin place for me. I think partly because there's just no distractions at all. It's one of those amazing places where, because it's a tidal island and it's not very big, not many people live there. The resident population, I think, is probably less than 50 people. So once the tide comes in and all the tourists go home, it is just you and the sheep. That's a real thin place. We'd love to know where your thin places are. Anyone who's listening, where are the places where you kind of sense God, if you believe in God, or have a sense of transcendence, a sense of something beyond yourself. Oh, we've already got some comments come in. Gina says, Walsingham, Northumbria, Lake District are all places I felt are thin places. She agrees with me, Holy Island. Thanks, Gina. That's great.
Yeah. Myself and my wife, we have what we call a default day. And what I mean by that is, when you have a day off and you're not quite sure what to do, rather than sit about and ponder your navel, we actually tend to go to Burnham on Crouch. And we walk by the river there. And that's a place often where we can meet with God. We can have a chat about things. We often plan holidays or next stages or a bit of work or whatever there as well. And we find that quite a thin place. And then we come back via the RHS, Hyde Hall. Yeah. And that's another place where we walk and often meet with God. Again, being in the countryside, And by a river, by the sea, for me, is often a place I can meet with God. Maybe because I'm just quiet and not enough noise going on, as you say. Yeah. So, folks, come on, add some more thin places. Maybe places where you might have actually met God or had some kind of spiritual experience. Emma, do you think we need to be in church to meet with God?
I don't know. I mean, I like church. I go to church. Well, it's hard to. I don't go to a church in a building at the moment. But I have found churches have been places where I've experienced God, but I've equally experienced God in all sorts of other places. Like, I mentioned Holy Island. Just when I'm out and about walking, or even just on an ordinary street in the town where I live, I can have this moment where you talked about God, sensing God smiling at you. I really like that phrase. Yeah, and that I don't think you have to be in a church building or kind of doing religious things for that to happen.
Yeah, no, I agree. And also, I think that many of us just think, well, I just meet with God on a Sunday in church. That's a place you might meet with God. Whereas I think we might say both our experiences are we meet God in all kinds of interesting ways and places. And sometimes when I watch a film, I might find myself in tears because something's really sort of touched me, which maybe is a spiritual experience or something like that. I'm reading some books recently, maybe because I've been away from life, being stuck at home quite a lot. I found myself actually meeting with God or some kind of spiritual experience in different ways. So maybe through a good story or something like that, I've actually met with God. Not necessarily Bible. That was obviously a bit of Bible I was reading earlier, but all kinds of ways. And I wonder what people think about, is God in every part of our lives, or do we keep God in a special box because it's too scary to let him out of that box? I don't know.
We've had a few more people sharing their thin places, Andy. So Andrew says Cuthbert's Cave in Northumberland and Stepper Point in Cornwall are thin places for him. So both ends of the country. Thanks for that, Andrew.
And Crazy Shallow Lady says, in the middle of a field in Somerset. Then she puts in brackets, New Wine. Now, New Wine is a Christian festival that some of us have been going to for years and years. And she's right. When you're sitting under the stars with a glass of red wine with really great friends chatting about things, you can meet God in that kind of place. And that is a very interesting place, going there every year, apart from this year, of course, and not next year. It's already been cancelled, unfortunately. But that can be a place where we actually choose to go to actually try and meet with him, to have that thin place, as it were. Yeah.
Okay. Julie says, absolutely agree. Anywhere outside. Benfleet Downs is one of my places of openness. It's a lovely phrase. A place of openness. Thanks for that, Julie.
Yeah. And we've got Emma. We've got Reshma coming here as well. I agree with Emma. You can have that connection with God any time of the day and place. And I think maybe it's us who disconnect from God rather than God disconnecting from us. If I get my words out here this evening, yeah. I think that's a very true statement. And in fact, the Bible says, "Where can I go to hide from God? If I go to the heavens, you are there. If I go down to the depths, you are there as well." So I think God is always there with us and for us. Yeah, which is interesting. Oh, and David is saying, Tutri Island as the sun sets across the water. That can be beautiful there, can't it?
Lovely.
Yeah.
It's interesting that this idea of, we don't have to be in a particular place or in a religious place to meet with God. And it makes me think about, every year towards Christmas time, sometimes, there can be a bit of, some people talk about the meaning of Christmas or the real meaning, or, people don't understand what Christmas is about. I think some people kind of, there's a lot of different meanings that we kind of layer on top of it, isn't there? Some people say Christmas is about Jesus. It's not about food, or, what did I say? Like pretty lights, nice food, presents. But I kind of, it was interesting. You talked about going to New Wine, to that Christian festival, to meet with God, but you also talked about being with friends in the middle of a field drinking some red wine. So obviously you'd chosen to go there to have a spiritual experience, but there was also sort of ordinary things about it that also were special to you. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. Sharing with friends, to me, relationship with God is not just me and God. It obviously is that to a certain extent, but it's actually it's me and you, Emma, and God. It's my other friends, because I've got other friends apart from you, which people find quite surprising actually for some reason. But I think you're right, a shared spiritual experience, and I think the Bible talks about us as a group, as a team, to use my business hat on for a second, working and playing and enjoying and supporting together. We talked about this being a tough year. I wouldn't have got through this year without some very good support from people, and others have said similar things to me. Mutual support, I think, has been very important. Crazy Chair Lady says, my thin places aren't necessarily places, but states of mind. Some physical places just have stronger, what's that word?
Resonance.
Resonance, thank you. For me, she plays cello, something about, for me, and make it easier for me to connect with God. And Eleanor Wilcox says, sometimes in church is a place I feel God the least. Interesting. Lost in the crowd kind of thing. It's when I'm out in the nature listening to worship music that I feel closest to him.
That's so interesting, isn't it? Yeah, it makes me think that, people are so different, aren't they? So some people really appreciate being on their own, being out in nature, being quiet. I kind of struggle with quiet, and you and I have chatted about this, haven't we, Andy? Not both of us kind of find being quiet quite difficult. And so I often I'll find in talking with other people, that kind of helps me to understand about God, to sort of, relationships with other people are really important to me in my faith and in my life generally. Yeah. Whereas for Eleanor, obviously, being in crowded around with lots of other people worshipping doesn't necessarily help her to connect with God. But when she gets out in nature and she's on her own, that's when she has that experience. Very interesting.
Yeah, which is interesting because I wouldn't call Eleanor necessarily a quiet person. But it's interesting as well, isn't it, that some of us have our quieter sides. End of a week, if I had busy with people, just to be quiet is really great. And people often say to me, are you ill? You're being quiet, you're not talking. And I say, no, I'm just being still a moment. Do you ever get like that, Em? You need to just be quiet and still sometimes?
I do. I do. I am an extrovert, and I know you are because we've talked about this. But I do also need time to be quiet and still and on my own. And I am a bit of a fan of Myers-Briggs. It's
25 minutes in. Woo!
Yeah, I made it a whole 25 minutes without mentioning Myers-Briggs. And but it talks about, sometimes some of us need to kind of reconnect with our values and kind of have that quiet time. And perhaps for those of us who know God or who are seeking to know God, part of connecting with God, we kind of sometimes need that time on our own. Now, David's got something interesting here. Also, when playing sport or being active, a bit of Chariots of Fire kind of thing. Eric Liddell said, Liddell.
I think. Yeah, I'll go with Liddell. Yeah.
I believe God made me for a purpose, but he also made me fast. And when I run, I feel his pleasure. That's a great quote, isn't it?
That's also interesting as well, because does that mean that when you do what you do, when you're being you're actually honouring God and you're serving God? So when you, for example, talk about Myers-Briggs and you do it with such enthusiasm, because you happen to mention it once or twice over the years I've known you, that maybe that is honouring God. And when some of people's annoyance, play the trombone, is God smiling? Sometimes I think he is. He quite likes my bum notes sometimes, to honour him and so on. Very interesting. Sarah says, I feel that church youth weekends away are a thin place as you're focused on faith and fellowship. So taking some time out, I think especially, we talked about New Wine doing that, but also taking some time out, and it could be, of course, people as they do Life and Soul with us, actually take some time out to think about life, meaning, universe, is there a God, etc., etc. So this can be, well, let's hope this is a thin place for some people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't stop at the live stream, because we also have a Facebook group. Life and Soul Community, we've called it. It's a private Facebook group. What that means is you can find us on Facebook. You can find us using that URL, or if I can figure out how to put it in the chat, I will put it through so you can click through. But find us on Facebook, Life and Soul Community. we'll have to, because it's a private group, Andy or I have to let you in, but we will let you in, don't worry. And what that means is that then it's a little bit more of a private space. So sometimes you worry, don't you, if you post something on Facebook, everyone in the universe, your dentist, your grandma's dog, everyone sees what you've written. Whereas in a private Facebook group, there's a little bit more privacy. It allows people to be a little bit more open. So Life and Soul Community is the name of our private Facebook group. If you enjoy these live streams and you want to carry on the conversation, Andy and I are in the group. We'd love to carry on chatting with you in between live streams.
And can I just say, I've gone out on a limb here and actually started to use Facebook for really the first time. And I'm putting a few quotes up. I'm not totally sure what I'm doing, which makes it half the fun, really, doesn't it? To see what I actually happen to say. But we will actually respond if people come to us, and we'll have chats going on and things as well. And as you'll see, as Life and Soul Christmas goes on, myself and Emma have different views on some things. And you might see us, I won't say argue, but have a heated debate, possibly, Emma. Would you say that's a possibility sometimes?
I'm not sure that we argue. I think we kind of play with ideas. Andy,
you are so good.
We do have different views about some things, and that's okay, because I don't know about you, Andy. I believe that you don't have to sign up to one particular set of beliefs as a Christian or as a person of faith. There are different ways of looking at things, and I think that's okay, and I think God is okay with that too. Thank you so much, David. Our friend David in the background has put the link to the Life and Soul Community Facebook group in the chat on Facebook and YouTube. So if you'd like to join us, you can click straight through and join the group. We'd love to see you there. Yeah.
And also, can we just say that this has actually been recorded, hopefully, and is available as soon as we finish, so people can go and watch it or direct their friends to something that's not to watch. But if you really are bored and lonely, middle of the night, go for it. Yeah, absolutely. Please, if you like these live streams, please do like and share them, add your comments, send them to your friends. Even if you think we're talking rubbish, we don't mind that. We like a good chat, a good discussion. So feel free to tell us, no, you got it all wrong, and this is what I think. And we just want to get a conversation going. Really, we want people to be able to talk about life and about spiritual things. And it's coming up to Christmas, so we get to do that with some toys and some pretty lights, so it's all good. Great.
Just about time for us to finish now. That kind of went pretty quickly, didn't it?
I know, that's been half an hour. Can you believe that already? Fantastic. Yeah. Well, it's been interesting, because we haven't done a Life and Soul since, was it August with the last one, or September maybe? I can't remember. But it's been some time anyway.
I can't remember either. It's been a few months since we did our last one. I've really enjoyed being back here again with you, Andy. And so we'll be doing 4 of these. This is the first of 4, 8:30 p.m. on a Wednesday evening. So we'll see you hopefully this time next Wednesday.
Just before we go, we want a subject out there, a question for people for next week, don't we?
We do. So the question for next week is, do angels have wings? What do we think? Do angels have wings? That is our question for next week. We're going to set up a Facebook poll so you can vote. Tell us what you think. Do angels have wings? And we'll be talking about the angels next week at Life and Soul. But for now, we need to say goodbye.
Just before we go, Susan's come and said, sorry, I missed that one. Susan, you can go on to Facebook or YouTube and watch it if you really want to.
Great. We hope to see you next time, Susan, and everyone else. Thanks for joining us.
Bye, buddy.
Bye.